Hi, my name's Claire Coleman. I am the Consumer Counsel for the state of Connecticut, advocating for utility consumers across the state. I'm here today with Connecticut's Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff, and we're thrilled to be together to talk about connectivity and consumer rights.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Thanks. You do so many important things for the state, Bob. Can you just explain the role of the Senate Majority Leader for listeners?
Sure, absolutely. And like I said, thanks for having me today. It's great to be here. We're here at Nutmeg TV, which is one of our great facilities that we have here in the state of Connecticut for these kinds of programs. Being the Senate Majority Leader certainly is a great job and one that I really love. I'm in my 9th year doing that right now. But first, I represent Norwalk and Darien up at our state capitol, but being elected Senate Majority Leader is really a great job. And I'll tell you a little bit about what it does. Is besides advocating for my constituents and passing bills that I like to pass that I'm interested in, being Majority Leader means that I help run the Senate and the floor of the Senate. So when we're in session, days that we're voting, and kind of act almost like a traffic cop in a way, figuring out, okay, what bills are ready to get voted on, what isn't ready yet, how much debate is each one going to maybe take, working with the Republicans who are in the minority to see if they have any bills that are ready and what kind of agreements we can make on that, working with the House to see what they're passing and what we might pass of theirs. So it's just really a lot of work, but it's a fun job, and one that is a team effort really, because I have great staff that helps out. We have great staff on our policy team, our legal team, folks who help me out on the floor, corralling other senators. So it really does work out well. And we're done May 8th. So that's the end of our legislative session this year. It's a short session. So what happens is if it's not passed in both chambers by midnight of May 8th, it has to come back next year.
Well, I understand that deadline well, being an advocate, often pushing for legislation and knowing that midnight deadline is real and that race to the end. So I know that you're in the final month, which can be a crunch.
Yeah, but it's amazing, actually. It's like a train in a way. It's like a locomotive. It chugs along in the beginning, and then by the end it goes pretty quickly. And what we see is that, especially on the last day, we'll have hopefully a consent calendar, which means everybody agrees to it, all 36 senators, and we could pass 30 bills, 35 bills, 40 bills in the last 5 minutes of the session, because these are something that everybody wants, things that everybody agrees on, and you make an agreement and you pass them all at the same time before that midnight strikes, and then all of a sudden it's no longer there. So it's always intense and it's a lot of drama, but it's my favorite part of the session.
Yes, I certainly know the value of getting your bill on the consent agenda.
Exactly.
Great. Well, I know from my perspective as the Consumer Counsel, which just for a little background for our listeners, is going to be in its 50th year. We were established in 1975. We represent the interests of utility customers, electricity, gas, water, really all forms of new renewable energy, and of course the telecommunications side, which is expanded in 2015. Our office was established, the Office of State Broadband, which really has a core mission of ensuring universal access to quality high-speed broadband internet. So we know that in 2023, the AARP acknowledged you as the 2023 Consumer Champion. And that means a lot to our office as consumer advocates and the work that you've done. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of your priorities and recognize your long history of advocating for consumers, particularly of telecom and internet. It's been a really important leadership space that you've filled, and we're really grateful. So tell us a little bit about your priorities and sort of how you came into being a leader in that space.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. And first, I just want to give you a plug for your office as well, because I got familiar with the Office of Consumer Counsel when I was on the Energy Committee, and then I became chair of the Energy Committee before I was Majority Leader. I would suspect that not a lot of people really know about the Office of Consumer Counsel, but it's very important. It's a very important office. It's one that really does fight for the ratepayers, whether it's whether it's one of the electric utility companies comes in and says that they want to increase rates, whether it's a cable company, and all the different things you described. This is where people say, well, who's advocating for me? And really, it's your office, the Office of Consumer Counsel, that are the ones who are charged by law to advocate for them. And you've really done a great job doing that. So I just want to, before I answer the question, I just thought, people should know the work that you do. And you've worked with Pura in some ways to help to ensure that rate cases have gone the way for the consumer. You've gone to court to mitigate certain electric rate increases, and that's been great. So I think that all those things are really important, and which is why I think we worked really well together, because we all have a mindset of trying to ensure that we're doing everything we can for consumers. And while sometimes we think we have kind of solved problems, sometimes dealing with utility companies or energy companies or cable companies, it's a little bit of a game of whack-a-mole. You think you got it on one hand, and then on the other hand, something else pops up and there's another issue. So that's why we have like the bills we had last year, which says that, I got a complaint from a constituent who said a company was charging them extra for paper bills. And these were senior citizens, some of whom could not literally see on a computer screen, and they were going to have to pay extra for that, and they were on a fixed income. I didn't think that was right. And then talking to some other colleagues, they didn't think it was right either. So something like that went forward. The mergers and acquisitions bill that we did, that your office played such a pivotal role in. And again, these are not things that make headlines. These are not things that are front page news for folks, because it's kind of complicated machinery of government and the bureaucratic process in a way. But where the bureaucracy steps in and actually tries to work hard for consumers by saying that, look, if a cable company is going to merge, so for example, if you had, say, one of the companies here in Connecticut was looking to be acquired by another company in Connecticut, and I'll leave names out for the sake of our family show here, that before, Pura really had no role whatsoever in that. So all the companies had to do was basically fill out a piece of paper and submit it. Probably got time stamped to make it formal, and that was it. Thanks to the efforts of your office and partnership in the legislature, we were able to pass a bill that said that's no longer the case anymore, where there now has to be more of a process and a review by the state's regulator. So again, this is where the Office of Consumer Counsel, those who are advocating for consumers and legislators together are working with the AARP and other advocacy groups to push forward legislation that actually really helps people.
Couldn't agree more. I've really enjoyed the partnership and ensuring that Pura is able to review any change of control of any company that either resides in or has a presence in the state is so important. And we're really thrilled that you were willing to champion that effort last year, and know that as telecommunications companies, broadband companies, and technology broadly changes, there are going to be many more mergers and change of control. Absolutely. So we now have this tool thanks to our joint work together.
Absolutely, couldn't do it. These are things that nobody can do things by themselves. And always, especially in a legislative process or governmental process, kind of like what the founding fathers, when they designed this system of government we have, nothing is centralized. Everything takes lots of people to put things together. So whether you're building new schools or whether you're doing bills like mergers and acquisitions, it takes various groups. So you have to have the cooperation of the chambers in the legislature, advocates in the executive branch like yourself and the governor, consumer groups and others, to really get these things through and push forward. But there's lots more things that we can do that will literally help consumers make sure that they have a voice, and also that they're not getting ripped off.
Absolutely. Speaking of not getting ripped off, one of the other measures we were able to pass together last session was to ensure that if a consumer chooses another company, and terminates their service, that they're no longer getting charged for the whole month, that the termination has to be reflected as of that date, and a customer now gets a pro rata share of their monthly subscription back. And that's really important because nobody wants to pay for a service they're no longer using.
Right, exactly. And if I were to go walk down Main Street of any community and said, hey, look, do you think it's right that you have to pay for the whole month of a service of something you're not using? They say, no, of course not. That's ridiculous. Why would a company even do that? But what a fight that was to get through.
Yes.
And between the lobbyists and the lobbying against that bill and the kind of the crying and whining that we heard from various companies, this is why this team effort really makes a difference. And on top of it, we also had to wait a little bit for court cases to go through. So we knew we were on solid legal ground when the cable companies were taking other states' laws to court. We weren't really sure what was going to happen.
Right.
But what we're seeing now is that courts are saying, federal courts and state courts are saying, look, you know what? States actually have more jurisdiction now than they had in the past. We're giving them a wider berth. One is because we know Congress isn't functioning the way it probably should. They're not passing the consumer protection laws that it should. Just as an example, as you know, but for the listeners, Connecticut, the United States is the only country, industrialized country, that doesn't even have a national data privacy law. That's crazy, right. Which is why we have state by state by state data privacy laws. So that's why it's important for us to continue to do this, and why courts are giving states more latitude on these things, because we can pass things like net neutrality. We can pass more mergers and acquisition bill. We can pass things that don't have consumers getting charged when they're not using the service. So those are some of the things that I think we have the ability in states to do that Congress just can't get done right now.
Absolutely. And speaking of net neutrality, there have been some exciting developments on the federal side, and you have been a leader in our state for many years advocating for principles of net neutrality and open internet in Connecticut. Do you want to talk a little bit about the importance of those principles and the proposals that you've supported?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to use this term again, but talk about a lot of whining and crying from the industry here of like somehow the world's going to end if we pass net neutrality principles. These are things that people expect. We know that the internet and being broadband and all that goes in with technology is not a luxury. And people say it all the time. It's not a luxury. It's a necessity. And this is how people work now. So we can't take where companies are coming in and they are throttling, or they're selling different packages, or they're pulling back in some way. That we have to make sure that there's an open and free internet for everyone. And that it's done in a way that is fair. I should say open and fair internet. And so that's what we're trying to do. We've had other states pass some net neutrality rules on. All we're trying to say in Connecticut, now that the FCC again is going to probably pass net neutrality, fortunately got repealed under Donald Trump. Joe Biden has put it back again with his FCC commission. All we're trying to say in Connecticut is we're going to live up to those federal standards. And if God forbid, the FCC votes to repeal it again, like they did last time, that we'll just stay by those federal standards. I don't think that's that hard. I don't think that should be that controversial. And I think that it should be something that we can pass here in Connecticut. Unfortunately, it's taken way too long. But in the legislative process, sometimes you just got to have patience. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Absolutely. And I can't agree with you enough. I mean, ensuring open and fair internet access is a core consumer protection and First Amendment right. And it's really exciting that the FCC, as you said, just a couple days ago, actually last Thursday, issued a draft order, which is proposing to reestablish broadband internet service providers as telecommunication services, which really lays the groundwork for the ability to ensure that these companies are providing that fair access. So to me, the draft open internet rule is even more important than just net neutrality principles, because it says that our governments, both federal and state, have a role in ensuring fair, transparent practices. And really, it's going to enable the FCC to ensure that our internet is safer from a cybersecurity perspective, ensure that we have resiliency in measures in place to weather storms. We do a lot of work, as you said before, the Public Utility Regulatory Authority on the electric side, and we really see the intersection between the provision of electricity services and broadband internet services. Same poles and wires, and when a pole goes down, it's not just pulling down the electricity, it's pulling down internet too often. So it's really important to have that coordination to ensure we're protecting for cybersecurity and really just ensuring that there are no bad actors in terms of attempts to filter information access to consumers. That draft order does still, as you said, leave an important role for the states, and so long as our guidelines and rules and regulations are consistent with those federal principles, they can coexist together. So I'm really excited, and I think that we'll have a lot of work to do together to ensure that in Connecticut we maintain that consistency of fair access that the federal government is now advocating for.
And that's what we want. We want to make sure that we have fair access and that it works out pretty well for folks. Because again, you talk to younger people, and these are some of the things that interest them. It's like data privacy and all these kinds of technologies and different ways in which we make sure we fight for the consumer.
Another really important issue we've worked on together, and your proposal this session focuses on, is affordability. We know that we've got pretty decent infrastructure in terms of internet access in the state, but adoption remains a real challenge, and in large part it's due to the affordability of internet service. Can you talk a little bit about some of the measures you're proposing to help bridge that gap?
Well, absolutely, and that's an issue. We saw that during the pandemic, really, which is that when everybody had to go home, there was the cracks that had already been there just got wider and bigger. And we saw that people literally were sitting at a McDonald's or some other place they can get free Wi-Fi because they didn't have internet access at home. Kids were learning, they were at school in a McDonald's or a McDonald's parking lot. I mean, it's not something that we should allow. We should even pretend for a second that that's okay. So thankfully, we had the affordability connectivity program through the federal government, and it has been a success not only in Connecticut but across the country. Whether it's red states, blue states, whoever, everybody's had a benefit by that. That has now gone away, but I think it should be the policy of the state of Connecticut to ensure that there is affordable connectivity at a good speed as well, because you don't want to have it where a company says, okay, we'll give you affordability, but it's going to be at a snail's pace. Well, that doesn't do anything to anybody. That's not the way the world is right now. So we need to make sure that those tiers are there. And a lot of companies, to their credit, have that, but we need to ensure that it's in our state law as well, so that there is that affordability, reliability for folks. Kids have access to that, especially if they need it for school. People have it if they're working from home, and that it is not treated again as a luxury, but is treated as a necessity and an economic necessity. We have people moving into Connecticut like never before. A lot of it's our quality of life, but a lot of it is because of the fact that we try to have a certain fairness and quality here that I think is very important.
Absolutely. I believe it's approximately 180,000 Connecticut residents who are currently receiving the federal affordable connectivity discount face losing that if Congress doesn't act. And I know that we've all been doing our part to advocate with our federal delegation to try to do what they can to help preserve that, but there's a lot of opposition, unfortunately.
Thankfully our delegation in Connecticut has been spot on, and they're for it, which is excellent. Again, it's turned into a partisan issue because President Biden is for it, and people don't want to give him a win. I'm not sure why, because again, it helps people wherever you are in this country.
Yeah, we are so lucky to have our federal delegation. We work closely with them both on telecom access as well as on the energy side. they're such wonderful champions for the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program and the new Water Assistance Program. So hopefully we can also keep up the Internet Assistance Program. Well, it's been so wonderful to talk with you. Yeah. It's wonderful to work together. I know we've still got a lot of work to do, both on the affordability front and on ensuring fair and equal access, and really looking forward to finishing off this session strong and the years ahead. Thank you.
Sounds good. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Public Education and Government Access TV, or PEG, has continued to serve Connecticut for over 30 years, connecting communities with local information, entertainment, education, and a transparent source for local government meetings. During this time, we've earned the trust of our communities. We're different than commercial media. Public access stations are not a network. They are publicly funded organizations that serve each of the 169 cities and towns. While some stations are operated by cable companies, almost half of the stations in Connecticut are managed by local nonprofit stations, like the one in your community. In fact, PEG stations are some of the last independently owned and operated TV stations in the country. Large and small, rural and urban PEG stations reach both cable and internet customers in Connecticut each year, with hyper-local content that educates, informs, and inspires, and that reach extends beyond the screen. Local stations are active members in the community, working with families and educators to prepare children for future success, bringing attention to state and local issues, and playing a role in healthcare and veterans affairs. At PEG, we view our audience as residents, not as consumers. We deliver award-winning, local community programming, such as documentaries, science, history, sports, cooking, and arts to our audiences, when, where, and how they want to watch. Since PEG's founding, federal support and state funding legislation has always been the cornerstone of what makes this possible. A fee is assessed to cable companies on each customer as they use public rights-of-way to reach billable customers. This fee is passed on to fund PEG. Every year, PURA reviews PEG funding, performance, and community engagement. Each station has a unique budget that includes legislatively mandated funding, individual donations, as well as revenue from other fundraising and grant sources, fulfilling the vision for a public-private partnership. But no matter how much fundraising for stations in rural or underserved communities, funding dollars can represent more than half of their budget, and without it, they won't survive. And communities across Connecticut will lose access to this essential service. PEG stations are making a difference, strengthening communities, improving lives, and serving all residents in Connecticut.
Hey there, Dr. Rich at Nutmeg TV, just looking back at some of my old family vacation films. Nutmeg TV can convert your old tapes, films, slides, and photos to DVD or digital. Call 860-321-7405 or visit nutmegtv.com.
When we think of an iconic New England town green, we think of the place where people got together and maybe heard some music, heard someone give a speech, maybe get an award. Times have changed, but the digital town green still brings all those stories, all those voices back to a central location. Nutmeg TV has been providing community television for over 30 years. We provide great facilities and training and equipment to allow anyone to come in and produce TV programming for the community.
Whether you're a college student looking to get into this industry or a senior citizen looking to learn a new skill set, we've made our equipment accessible to anybody.
Nutmeg TV is a family, and we embrace diversity, and we work with folks from all walks of life. And it's our job to make these studios available for anyone to use. We educate folks in how to do TV production, podcasting, etc., and so they can go on to other careers in the TV business. Nutmeg TV is really blessed to have a great group of folks who work here. We have a culture at Nutmeg TV that is set from the moment you walk in the door for positivity all day long. Each and every day, we are affecting the community in which we live. We needed some studio upgrades, and we were able to get a grant with the state of Connecticut, but we needed that extra bit of cash in order to get over the hump. As you know, technology is very costly, and we needed to do that. And Ion Bank believed in us. They believed in us, they believed in the project. They came down, they took a look at what we needed, and they said, you know what, we can help get you the rest of the way. As a result of Ion Bank's financial help, we've been able to help others move on in a field that's difficult to get experience in. It's very important when you're a business that works in the community and for the community that you're working with partners who understand who you are. And Ion Bank does that. They walk with us every day. Community is important, and Ion gets community, and they get Nutmeg TV. It's community banking at its best.